Hello, everybody. I'm here with Mike Austin. He's an old standing friend. I was thinking about this morning. I've known you for 31 years.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Quite a while.
It's been a while. Yeah. It's been a few minutes.
Yeah.
Because I started tattooing 32 years ago, and I met you about a year after I started. So,
did I meet you at a tattoo convention? Or did I meet you in the tattoo shop? I'm trying to remember.
I think it was the tattoo shop.
The tattoo shop. You came in to get some work done.
I came in to get a tattoo on my wrist.
Was that downstairs in the original?
Downstairs.
Downstairs? Okay, yeah. So that's a while ago.
It's going back a bit.
Wow.
So I asked you, it has been. Time is, and it seems to be flying twice as fast right now. Well,
yeah, with everything that's going on. And plus just getting old too, right?
Yeah. You're getting old?
I feel like I'm getting old. I fucking wear glasses now. I hate it.
Yeah, I got glasses
fucking
too.
Stupid, man. Like, usually I can't even find them.
Yeah. So I've asked Mike to come on today to talk a little bit about tattoo history and a little bit about his personal history. So I'm pretty excited. We don't really know what we're going to get up to, but
no,
I have a few questions in mind.
I'll do my best to answer them.
So what year did you start tattooing at Blue Dragon?
I walked into the Blue Dragon, I think, in 1986, looking for a job because I didn't have a job, and I went to a place, the Great West Steakhouse, and they was applying for a job as a dishwasher, and I told them my hair was too long.
Yeah.
They wouldn't hire me, so I said, screw that. And I went down the street, and I went right into the Blue Dragon. Frank was there. Darren, I'd known them from Melbourne because we all lived out there at the same time in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you guys need any artwork drawn? And Frank said, come back on Saturday. And I did. And that's how it started. And then Darren was Frank's practice board, I guess you could say. Frank learned how to tattoo by practicing on Darren.
Back in the garage.
In the garage in Melbourne, the Black Sheep Tattoo Clinic. And he said, Mike, if you could tattoo the way you draw, you could fix all this shit the old man's done on me. So we approached Frank and asked him, and he said, yeah. So I started my apprenticeship in 1987.
Yeah.
And I was there for 6 years, I think. Learned a lot, got to travel, went to England a number of times, went down to the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. And that was really eye-opening because when I first got into it, I thought, this isn't what I want to do. I want to be an archaeologist.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just because, like, the quality of the tattoo, this is going to sound insulting, but the quality of the tattooing that I saw in front of me I didn't like it, right? Mm-hmm. But, I wasn't seeing awesome stuff like what, Jerry Swallow would do or Lanny Glover or any of these guys, right? I was just seeing the shit that we were doing, and we didn't even know how to tighten needles.
That's right.
We were just doing garbage. And I feel I can say that because I did a lot of shitty tattoos.
Yeah.
But going over to England and seeing the work of Mickey Sharps and Ian of Reading, Kevin Shercliffe, and Bernie Luther, holy shit, Philip Liu, Dave Shore, like all these guys, it was very eye-opening, and my whole perspective changed. And I came home. I think it was 1989. I was in Dunstable, 1989, I think, and that was my first exposure to what you can do with tattooing.
Sure, yeah.
And I thought, holy fuck. So I came home, dropped out of school, and started tattooing. Yeah. That's how I got into it.
Well, and when I look at your career in tattooing, it's made such a significant impact on Canadian tattooing. And you raised the bar, so to speak, to a place that not very many people could reach. And I know you're a humble guy, so you may not see it that way, but you're in a very small group of tattooers in Canada that was at your level of skill and ability for drawing and then tattooing.
I've always been able to draw, but when I first started drawing, it wasn't very good, but I did it anyways because I liked it. I think where I am in tattooing now has a lot to do with, some of it is skill, I'll agree, but a lot of it is luck and meeting the right people at the right time, you know?
And that was what I was going to say. When you went over to Europe and it sort of expanded your mindset, that was sort of what stimulated you to start pushing harder.
Yeah. I didn't realize that you could, with the medium of tattooing, that you could accomplish these things. That was a whole mind-blowing awareness that came upon me.
Yeah.
And I fucking came home, man, and that's when I started trying really hard. And it was just frustrating because I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the ability, you know, and the way I drew really wasn't suited to tattooing. It was too busy. It was too detailed. I'd use these little fucking, what are they called? Radiograph pens, you know, with a little wire tip. And it wasn't, but I drew a shitload of tattoo designs for the Blue Dragon, and Frank sold them like all over the world. I didn't know. He never told me. I remember going to, I don't know when it was. Maybe it was 89, 90, 91, something like that at the Dunstable Tattoo Show, walking around, and almost every single table had my art on it, except my name wasn't on it. My name had been removed. And that was cool.
Put his name on it, did he?
No, I've got the drawings in the museum. You can see the pieces of paper, the original drawings, and a little scissor cut going up to it, and then a little circle missing from the drawing.
Sure, yeah.
But I have no hard feelings, man. I mean, Frank got me into tattooing, and he told me that when he started. He said, I'm going to give you something very special. This is a really good opportunity. This will be your livelihood. There's something to that effect. And he said, just treat it with respect. So I've always tried to do that. Yeah.
In my early time with you, you introduced me to Jerry Swallow and, and Mac Bragg.
Yeah.
You know, and inadvertently you sort of got me interested in tattoo history. You know, because of the crowd that was gathering around you at the time when I met you.
Okay. So
you've always had this fascination with history itself.
Oh yeah.
And where does that come from?
I don't know. When I was a little kid, I had a museum in my room. I was like 10 years old, and I would have arrowheads in there and all these other things that I found out in fields. And whenever we had company or my parents had people over, I insisted that they come upstairs and look at my museum. And I remember some of them entertained me. Some of them were just like, this fucking kid is so annoying with his stupid museum, but I didn't care. And then we moved out to Melbourne. I think I was maybe 9 when we moved out there. My teacher, Dr. Brian Deller, was an archaeologist, and I already had this sort of base interest in history, but this fellow, who is a good friend of mine still to this day, he totally got me interested in history. He got me interested in the War of 1812. He got me interested in antique guns, antique swords, indigenous history of the region, the geography of the region, like everything. I just love that stuff. Yeah. So it was natural, I guess, when I got into tattooing that I wanted to know about the history. When I first got into it, I didn't know anything about the history of it. For the first few years, all I knew was what Frank had told me. And we were kind of in a little bubble back then. Yeah. You know, you never really thought that there were other tattooists around. There was Al Newcomb in London, but I was scared of him. He was a scary guy. Yeah. And I think Frank knew that. But over the years, Al and I became really good friends. And I learned a lot from him, too. You learn something from everybody. I think I got into the history of tattooing, well, because of my desire for that type of knowledge, but I also collect stuff. I'm a notorious collector. And I wanted to get my hands on some of these objects that were from the history of tattooing, right? Like when you handle something that's from an era, to me, it just brings it home to me. Like it connects me to that time. And you think about who had this and what did they look like? What were they thinking? What did they do with it? Where is this object gone? You know?
That's right.
So I started collecting tattoo stuff. And of course you mentioned Jerry Swallow. That guy, you collect stories from him. He's got his mind is just, it's like a black hole. Nothing escapes it. He remembers everything. Yeah. And he's got the best stories.
That's right.
The most amazing stories, you know. Mac has great stories too. I'll remember them. I'll remember them forever. I hope I remember them forever. Yeah. Anyways.
And we were talking about this the other day when we were on the phone, and how I think like Jerry tells these stories in his mind constantly. He wakes up thinking about these stories. He goes to bed thinking about these stories.
That's true. That's like in indigenous cultures, any sort of culture that doesn't have writing, that's how they remember things. You tell the same stories over and over, exactly the same way.
That's right.
And that way it gets into your head, but it's not like the telephone game where you're sort of remembering something and then you make little changes because you can't remember.
Yeah.
And Jerry, those stories, that's the only way to tell stories. Yeah.
And that's what these books that I'm producing are about. Is there's going to be around 300 profiles, and I'm telling the story of 300 different Canadian tattooers, and that is my way of preserving the Canadian history,
which is so important
in print.
It is. It's what you're doing is a really important undertaking.
Yeah,
absolutely, and it's an undertaking. Like you've been doing it for years, man. People. Yeah. Well, you're good at it though, and you've figured out how to do it. You know what you're doing, and you just got a knack for it. You know?
I did that first, and then I wish I could go back.
I couldn't draw it first. So it happens, right? Like
that's right.
You get into something, you find your way, and nobody starts doing anything amazingly well. Nobody starts as a or a master or anything. That takes time, man. You learn from mistakes. You have to make mistakes.
Confidence. You get that after the fact, after you've done something that makes you feel vulnerable and something that pushes you out of your comfort zone. Then you feel confident.
Yes, exactly. That's totally it.
So I have my own ideas about the importance of history and preserving it. What do you think? Why should we preserve the tattoo history, and what's the importance of that?
The tattoo history in Canada is fleeting, really. When you think back, I mean, 100 years ago was like the first, maybe 110 or something years ago is the first mention of a tattooist in Canada. It was a Chinese fella out in the West Coast. But in the scale of things, that's nothing. Like 100, 120 years is nothing.
Yeah.
We're a small population. So we don't have as many, well, we probably do now, but we didn't have as many artists as other places. Our culture, our tattoo culture is a lot smaller than probably any other tattoo culture. Like the States, there's 10 of them to every one of us. In England, it's just, there's not a lot of us. And we have contributed to tattooing. We've improved. We're standing, like I always say, we're standing on the shoulders of people that came before us, right? It's like a foundation, and it keeps getting built upon. And you need a strong foundation to build anything. I just think it's important. I feel that it's important.
In your generation of tattooers, which I'm pretty close to being part of that generation, we learned from, the people that came before us. And so, I look out and I see a lot of young tattooers making mistakes that I was told not to do right at the beginning of
because you learned from somebody who knew what they were doing, That doesn't seem to be happening now. And that's fine. I mean, it's always changing. It's always going in different directions. But I think a lot of it now is, unfortunately, it's the blind leading the blind around, because everything's so accessible. In our day and the time before us, it was not accessible, and it also wasn't popular.
That's right.
It's become a fad now. But that's, that's how it goes. That's, do I have a problem with that? I don't know. It's people get tattooed for their own reasons, and I can't judge them.
Yeah.
Tattooing is a lot more precise now. It's a lot cleaner. Obviously I'm in a better space now than I was, 38 years ago or whenever. So there's things about it now that I really embrace and I like, but there's things about it from back then that I miss. And part of it was there wasn't really a lot of tattooers around. And if you had 10 of those guys lined up in this room right now, they would be 10 individual people. They would dress differently. They would look different. They had completely different styles. People were always trying to stand out with their own styles. You could pick somebody's work by looking at their arm. You can't do that now. I think, and I'll probably get shit on for this, but I think a lot of them, they all look the same and they're all doing the same shit. Now there's this artificial intelligence and people bring it in. It's useful, but they come in and they're like, I want this. And you look at it and it's like a 3-legged dragon with 7 toes on 1 foot and just looks fucked. Right.
That's right.
So you got to change it. You got to, but again, that's the way it's going. And I just started babbling there.
No, it's there's a lot to say. And I think we could look at points that favors what's happening now and points that say, okay, there's some points that we don't like. And us older generation, we get called gatekeepers a lot, but it's a tradition that, and the brotherhood or sisterhood of tattooing that we're sort of the personhood. Yeah. I think that's a component that I miss the most.
Yeah. I would agree with that for sure.
And the importance of preserving history is back when I first started, because there were so few of us, everybody knew everybody.
Yeah, they did.
And it was like a family.
Yeah, it was. You go to a convention, you knew everybody, and there was always shit going on, but everyone exactly like a family.
And we had dysfunctional characters of the family, which every family has.
Yes.
But yeah, I saw tattooing as this family. And when I joined, it felt like I was part of something, part of something really special. And so, my purpose of doing these books and trying to preserve this is to bring a sense of family back into tattooing.
Okay. Yeah.
So how do we preserve history? We tell story.
Yes.
So I hope that through writing all the stories of people in the industry that we start to know each other more.
Yes.
And when we know each other, we feel closer. We feel like we're actually connected to that person.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Knowing your history makes me feel closer to you, and it makes me understand where you come from. And if you say something that, even if I don't agree with it, I find I understand where you're coming from because I understand your story.
That's the beauty of a democracy. Eh? We can have opposing views, but still treat each other with respect.
Absolutely. Not that I ever find myself in opposition with your thoughts, but yeah, I think that's the importance of preserving the tradition, is that we by preserving that, we know each other a little bit more intimately, and we feel this automatic connection that we're part of something.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that has never, the magic of tattooing isn't gone.
It's not. I think in the past, the blood of tattooing or the magic of tattooing was very thick. And as it's come along through the decades now, it's become very diluted, very thin, But what you're doing, I think, it's maybe going to hopefully pull a little bit of that back together a bit. Hopefully, who knows, right? You never know. But somebody's got to be doing it. You're the guy to do it. And I think it's really important. I hope that, like anybody that sees this, that isn't part of it, that has something to offer would want to come back to that.
Yeah.
Come back into the family.
That's right. Yeah, because I think we're all spokes of the wheel, and we need every spoke.
Tattooing is the hub.
Yeah.
Or the axle.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then we're all the spokes, and there's no... when you look at tattoo history, quite often you'll see the same characters pop up.
Yeah.
You know, and people will just mention the same people repetitively, but we're all part of that history. No matter how shitty we are as artists, or we're taking the jobs that, you know, some of the better artists wouldn't want. You know, there's a need for everybody in this industry.
It's a web. It's like a web.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Everybody's got an important part to play. And you're right. Some always get noticed or always get mentioned, but there's a lot out there that don't get mentioned that should get mentioned. There's a lot out there that have done big things for tattooing, you know, but they don't go out looking for it. They're just happy to be doing their thing, and that's all they want. I like that. I think that's a good way to be.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. What are some of the things that you feel like you've contributed to the Canadian tattoo scene?
I don't know. I really can't speak to that. I know that what I do is part me, but it's also the influences that I've had. Like, one of my big influences was the Dutchman.
Yeah.
That guy, holy cow. Like, he walked above water. And you would see every once in a while, if you were lucky, you'd see one of his tattoos come into the shop, and you'd look at it, and it was unlike anything else you'd ever seen. Yeah. And you'd be like, this guy must be magic or something. Yeah. You know, and I was really fortunate enough to go, because I was born in Vancouver, but Vinnie Rocco and Kerry Irvine used to have me go over at their shop, which was the Dutchman's old shop. Vinnie apprenticed under Paul Jeffries, and Kerry, I think, learned how to tattoo in Ocala. He did something. He was a nice guy, but he did something a little violent, I think, and spent some time in the penitentiary. I've got one of his penitentiary machines. Oh, do you? Yeah, yeah. Okay. He was wild, that guy. He was a fucking great artist, and I bet you a lot of people don't even know who that guy is. You know, he died. He's gone, unfortunately, but. I think everything that I draw and I do is I've just pulled things from different people. I remember when we first went to England, and Bernie Luther was like this superstar. People couldn't believe what he and a guy named Klaus Furman were doing. And of course, Philip Liu, they're all kind of part of that, these European hippie, trippy friggin' artists that just came out of nowhere, and we're all in awe of them. So I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do that, you know, but I couldn't do that. I fucking wasn't skilled enough to do that. Yeah. And I used to get frustrated. And Kevin Shercliffe said to me, Mike, he said, you're not Bernie Luther. You're never going to be Bernie Luther. He said, take from Bernie Luther that which appeals to you, or something like that, and just leave the rest and go with it. And that, for me, was really good advice, because we all have something to offer on our own. But does it develop solely within us? No, it's composed of different things. You know, the Dutchman, Bernie Luther, Philip Liu, Jerry Swallow, Lanny Glover. I think what I do, I've just taken all these things from them that I respect, and that's it.